Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, is Mr. Robert Hagan. Robert, the Super Bowl's over, so what do you want to talk about?
What are you channeling your inner Cody Rhodes? What do you want to talk about?
It's getting
It is
about that
elimination
time.
chamber work. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is elimination chamber weekend. But I went down and subbed last night. There are still people, Chiefs fans and San Francisco fans, still talking about it at the bowling alley. So it's
Right.
crazy. We're a week into it, and still all of the theories of what's happening and all that. All right, let's bring on the draft. It's draft time. Hey, and the other big news, it's always scuttlebutt right about this time, but two big names have already been leaked to want to play for Baltimore. I'm a little excited. Yes, they're a little bit old, but
Ray Lewis is coming back?
yeah,
No? Oh,
no, but
not that
yeah,
old?
no, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley want to go play for John Harbaugh and the Ravens. Maybe. Who knows?
We'll discuss that in like a month when free agency finally hits. We'll look at the franchise tags that'll start out later this week, and that'll be a little bit of the football talk we get to. Look at the rest of the stuff we will get to today. Caitlin Clark broke an NCAA record, so we will give her a shout out and kind of look at that. We don't talk a lot of NCAA women's basketball, but a pretty cool moment over the last week. Robert sent me a message yesterday asking what we without the jokes of what do we really want to talk about on this show, and are we only going to do an hour? And the one thing he said he refuses to talk about is the NBA All-Star game. So of course we'll talk about that abomination of a game that was on TV. We're bringing back the sports related draft now that the NFL is over, and it is February. It is a leap year, so this is the leap month. So why not do the greatest leaps of all time? A weird twist on jumps, I guess, but I was trying to be clever earlier today. We'll see how that works out. Major League Baseball is getting closer. First spring training game is this Thursday. So we're going to start previewing every single division. The NL West is up first since the Dodgers and Padres kick us off for spring training. So we'll talk about that. Ask an interesting question about a quote that Anthony Rendon had over this last week. I know you as a coach may not like it as much as I do, but we'll get to that. Obviously, we'll get into some bowling stuff. We'll talk some wrestling stuff at the end because we're nerds, but we'll talk some wrestling stuff here very shortly as well. More local wrestling things as well. Just want to give out one quick shout out myself. Thank you guys so much for checking out the new episode of Bad Brackets already today. The 90s sitcom episode launched around noon here on Monday. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Just search Bad Brackets on YouTube or any of our Facebook pages. I have it posted all over the place. It was a really fun episode. Robert Taylor was on it for the first time. A lot of yelling happens for an hour. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad a lot of people are starting to check it out, and we're having a lot of fun with it. Also, right when we're done doing this episode, we're recording next week's episode, and my daughter and her cousin Jaslyn did this wonderful picture to the left, which gives you a little sneak preview of what next week's episode is going to be. If you know what it is, leave us a comment real quick. Let us know what your guesses are, what next week's Bad Bracket episode is going to be. Robert, what else you got?
I watched the episode earlier today, and I made the comment. Our buddy, our friend Robert Taylor, found out how rancid Randy could be on this episode. So make sure you go check that out. A great hour, a little hour and a half episode. So go and check that out. One quick note from Bantam Nation. If a lot of you have been following along with what's going on, videographer and manager for the Clarkson girls team, Kylan Graham, finally got his donated kidney and had surgery yesterday. He had a chance to message with him today. He was in good spirits when I talked to him earlier, and over in Seattle Children's Hospital. So shout out to Kylan. We're praying for you, buddy, and you got this. It's gonna be a long road, especially not having him probably over the this playoff run. It's going to be really tough. Saw him on Saturday. He was in good spirits. So shout out to him and that. So.
All right, you talk about the playoff run, and that's what we're going to focus this first 45 minutes or so on, is a lot of the local stuff. Obviously, LCSC basketball has their final week of the regular season upcoming. We'll talk about senior night and what happened over the weekend, crossovers going on both levels, both college and high school. We'll look at the state tournaments. Girls state is now concluded in the state of Idaho. We'll break all of that down for you. We'll look ahead to see what Lewiston has to do on the boys' side to try to make it to state. Of course, we'll look at Clarkston as well. But we've made it a goal in 2024 to have more guests back on the show. We lost it during the fall with all the stuff that was going on at the radio station, and it was tough to have guests when you only had 2 working mics. So we made it our goal to have more guests, and neither of us were on the show at the same time, so it made it very difficult. But we're changing that. We changed it last week with Sam Stockett and Coach Goose. We're changing it here tonight. Robert, go ahead and introduce our new guest.
I'm excited.
I say new guest, one old guest.
I'm excited because, we get a friend of the show back on and he's here to talk some wrestling, but he messaged me, he says, hey, you got to get Coach Marcus on. And I'm excited because this is our first coach, Randy, that is not in the immediate LC Valley that's joining us tonight as Pullman head coach, Mr. Marcus Crossler, and our buddy Clarkson Bantam coach, Corey Thieveridge, joining us tonight. How are you guys, gentlemen? Especially coming off of Matt Classic 35 over in the Tacoma Dome this last weekend.
I don't know about Corey, but I'm so exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to recover.
Yeah, both of you guys.
Very long 2 days.
Yeah, with all the pictures that I see that come from Tacoma and all that, it has to be. It's got to be one of the largest wrestling tournaments statewide, with how they have things laid out in that Tacoma Dome. Talk a little bit about the lead up to those wrestling time and getting things set up, and you guys' stuff to the state level.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, the state of Washington has 7 classifications with B schools, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, and then the girls' brackets broke out into 2. So with 7, they have 4 mats per, so that's 28 mats out there on the dome floor. So spectator seating is kind of high up on one side, and the bleachers are completely pushed in on the other. So if you've been to the Tacoma Dome for state football, it's kind of the same type of layout as you would if you had the turf down there as well. So the one side is pretty hard to see if you're trying to watch mats. So that's where Corey brought the Clarkson team is up on top. But once you're on the edge, you can actually get a pretty good view. But there's not a lot of chance for a lot of coaches to head back up into the stands when you're chasing guys around 4 mats. So it's a really cool format, and it's a big tournament. That last finals, the place is packed. It's so loud in there.
Yeah.
It feels like Beasley Coliseum. It really does.
Corey, talk a little bit about the overall season here for the Bantams. Not quite what we wanted to see record-wise, but love seeing now the number of kids wrestling in this program.
Oh, yeah. We finished the season with 2 league wins and 1 non-league win. It's not the best, but it's more than we had last year. Last year we finished the season with 13 wrestlers. This year we finished with 30. So the numbers are there. The kids are coming out. The program's growing just like I wanted.
And talk about growing that program, because obviously with having so few kids last year, there was a lot of forfeits that you guys had to do in different weight classes, and you're just kind of dealing with what you had. Now talk about just with that growth, how has it been nice to be able to fill out some of these weight classes and not have to have as many forfeits?
Oh, it's great. We filled out all but 1 weight class this year. I think that's what it was, Marcus, right? I don't think we only forfeited you once, right?
Correct.
And it's great. Granted, everybody's young. We're freshmen and sophomores, basically. my 5 seniors are gone this year. Next year, I'll only have 3 seniors, and everybody else will be freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. But that's a good problem to have. Be young, and so far, everybody said they're coming back. There's going to be 20 kids, 15, 18, 20 kids from the junior high showing up. And the other positive is our girls program's taken off.
Yeah. So same question for you, Marcus. As we're trying to learn a little bit more about your program, even looking and working the few duels there at Clarkson High School, the numbers overall in the GSL are growing.
They are. We had a couple forfeits with injuries and stuff. We had the injury bug real late in the season and never fully recovered. But as a dual team, we struggled a little bit. It's a tournament team. We looked a little better. It kind of just depends on where your guys are on the weights and if you can get a good run going. But as the GSL goes, we're all kind of in the hunt at any given time. You don't know which teams are going to show up or which guys, get the flu bug that week or whatever. You don't know as the season goes on. So it's hard to know exactly who you're going to face. Each team's got a few dudes on each team that are really good. So it's kind of fun to see which lineup they throw at you, because they'll put 2 or 3 different guys in a weight class, and you don't know which one they're going to send to the table and who you're going to wrestle. So
yeah,
Corey and I both kind of play a straight up game. This is who we got. This is who we're wrestling. This is who I send to the table. I'll tell you a week in advance. I mean, this is all we got. So
100%, 100%.
But nothing but love for the GSL coaches. We're a pretty tight knit group. We're bouncing around to all the matches, cheering each other on, especially if we're going against the CWAC. So
absolutely,
we really like I said, the camaraderie is there, and it's been a fun season for both programs to watch Clarkson grow and the GSL grow and shrink, I guess, if you want to look at it that way too, as we're moving teams around next year.
Yeah, we talked a little bit of pre-show time. GSL going through some changes. We're losing Shadle Park. We're gaining in North Central and Deer Park. Deer Park will be the true 2A school. North Central is going to play a schedule that is a 3A, or excuse me, a 2A schedule, but until it comes to tournament time, we'll play a 3A. Lots of growth happening, changes, but this is something we expect every 4 years or something. They relook at this stuff.
Yeah, and it's exciting.
It is. It's great, and I'm thinking not just our league that's moving around. There's some other schools like Toppenish is coming back up from 1A to 2A, and that's going to change wrestling in a big way.
Yeah, somebody's going to be in the 2A that's going to challenge Ording.
Yes, and Othello.
Yeah, and Othello. It's pretty bad when Ording's sitting in the corner for almost every one of the finals matches at the state tournament. It's almost like a dual meet for them. So
talk a little bit about MAC Classic 35. Corey, we'll start with you. You took 4 guys. Let me rephrase that. 4 team members over to the state competition in the Tacoma Dome this past weekend. One of which a freshman, a young lady that I have watched over the last couple of years, and where she's gotten a lot better with her brother wrestling, and that's Kinsey Wiesa at the 105-pound weight class.
Yes, Kinsey is our Kayla Rice 2.0. Like I said in the interview for the paper, she is 100% a spitting image of Kayla. Same weight class, same everything. They go out there, they wrestle the same. They have the same expression on their face. It doesn't look like they're ever worried about anything. They just go out and get the job done. That is Kinsey. She had a tough bracket for a freshman. She went 0-2, but she gained a lot of experience, and she actually got nominated for GSL Wrestler of the Year. She did not get it, but Allie Betts, the girl on our team, got it. So we have a Wrestler of the Year for the Bantams for the girls team, and it's exciting. Next year we should have an official girls team with the junior high girls moving down to the high school, and that'll give us 8. And they'll be in their own schedule. No more wrestling and duels. They'll have their own duels and everything at home.
Yeah, that's great.
So-
With those seeing those girls, I will see them tomorrow. Half the part of the reason we're doing the show tonight is our big last home stand is tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So we'll have those. A couple other guys that made the trip over for you. Tommy Samuels wrestled at 138. Another tough loss, 1-2. And you dropped some notes to me in the notes. Explain what blood rounds are. I'm not 100%.
Blood rounds is the match before placing. That is usually the hardest match of the tournament, right, Marcus? And it literally, blood rounds is 100% what it sounds like. It is the battle. It's the one that determines whether you place or not. And Tommy and Bodie both went out in that round, but they both battled.
Yeah,
So-
it's tough to, it's looking at the brackets today. I had a few minutes and I looked at all the brackets and just see what these kids went through to get there, and with wins and
Yeah.
losses. We'll talk about your final wrestler, Dawson Bailey, comes away with his third place title. This is the third time that he has wrestled for third place over the Matt Classic.
Yeah. So the first 2 years, his sophomore and junior year, he went out and lost the first match of the tournament. I don't know if it was nerves or what it was, but he went out and dropped that first match and battled all the way back. This time, he got to the semis. He wrestled a 2-time state champion in the semis and wrestled really good against him. It just didn't come out on top. Got into the third place match against a kid that he lost to at the finals at regionals, and did what Dawson does. He wrestled well, won. He handled the kid pretty easily. So,
Well, I mean, hats off to that guy to go back 3
Yeah,
years in a row,
100%.
third place, and great athlete there. Let's turn our attention to Marcus and your team. You came away with 3 state champions. How many guys did you take over this year?
Well, we brought 4 guys to the Matt Classic and 3 champions and an 8th place.
So let's talk about
and fourth as a team.
4th as a team.
There, you gotta get the team one in there. But let's talk about the Acostas and what these guys have done. Izzy wrestled at 144, comes away the state champion last year, state runner up, and had some really good. And it's got some great career numbers right now, 79-3.
Yeah, and after I asked the rest of the coaches, they go, "Is that the right number?" Because that's what I have in my stuff. He goes, "Yeah, before state." So he's 84-3 was his overall record for the season.
Sweet.
And he walked. I don't want to. I sound like I'm bragging, but I am a little bit. He was perfect throughout the state tournament. Went 4-0. Not a point scored against him. Pinned his guys in the first round of every match.
That's worthy of bragging, I think.
He's what the other coaches were like, "Yeah, you got 3 dudes." I'm like, "Yeah, we got 3 dudes this year." So Izzy, being the 144 pounder, was the runner up last year and lost to
Apollo.
the guy that Apollo Cruz, who Ivan. So he took out last year, and the year before that, he took out Aiden Peltier, who also won for us at 157. So Apollo was kind of go 3 for 3 against Pullman kids in the finals, and Ivan stopped him.
Well, that's good. I mean, great. You say Ivan again, 2024 champ at 150 pound. He was a state runner up in the 22 and the 23 season. So also great numbers, 100 wins, 27 losses so far in his career.
Yeah, that was Aiden. Ivan's career record 142-11. And he's doing, and he's going to take it to the next level in college. He was one of the nominees for the Merchant Marine Academy, fourth by Captain Morris Rogers, and we'll wrestle in the Division III for the Merchant Marine Academy.
And then you said Aiden a minute ago, his numbers also, again, a state champion this year, 22 state runner up. And I had him confused, 100 wins, 27 losses. Just another showing of what this area and the wrestlers in this area bring to the table for these state tournaments, and even doing other tournaments around the area by state, and we're looking at all those other ones. These guys are the true leaders of your of your wrestling club.
Yeah,
for sure, and just great kids. I mean, off the mat too. Aiden, Matt's side, he's yelling for Dawson. He's yelling for Tommy and Bodie. I mean,
half the time
really
you see
cool.
Aiden in our corner coaching our kids. I mean, they all grew up together. They grew up on these little guy tournaments all the way through until, like I said, half the time you'd see Aiden in our corner coaching my kids because he was just there coaching with me. So they are great kids. Every one of these kids are great kids. They're a close family. Like Marcus said, we're a family.
And I think that's
You should have seen.
Go ahead.
When it was the 3 Pullman kids getting ready for the finals, when Izzy first went out, my whole team that I took over there was cheering for Izzy, cheering for Ivan, cheering for Aiden. When Aiden won his finals match, Aiden probably heard us yelling for him out in the middle of that arena.
Wow.
So it was amazing. It's pretty awesome.
So just kind of talk about that. You guys have used the word family a lot, and it definitely shows how much you guys care about each other's teams. And like you said, all these wrestlers grew up wrestling with each other in the different clubs that were going on. You see that a lot with basketball these days where, like, sure, like the amount of times, like when we all grew up, Lewis and Clarkson, that was a big rivalry. And we didn't talk to each other, and they had to gate everybody off. And now, because everyone grows up together and they do all these different things, the amount of people that I saw, like at Golden Throne, that the moment that game was over would get together and congratulate each other or wish them good luck is one thing. Obviously, it seems like it's even bigger in the wrestling community because you guys have to be extremely tight-knit to trust the person that you're training with to not
absolutely
try to take advantage and hurt you. And then when you're doing this with people from other schools and different backgrounds, just kind of talk about how that community comes together and how you guys have become such a family.
Well, like the AAU stuff for basketball, you get your little travel squad and you go to your tournaments all over. And it's the same thing with little kid club wrestling. Is there's 2 different seasons. There's kind of a fall and a winter, and the fall season is the North Idaho Central Idaho League. So you're wrestling Grangeville to Potlatch, and so being a few Washington schools in there, they let us join in so they have some more numbers. And I mean, same kids, the kids from Potlatch and the kids from CV that have grown up.
Yeah.
And it's the same. I mean, I don't know how many brackets on my son's wall upstairs there's Tom Samuels. I mean, it's just, we're all in the same group. We all know these kids, their families, backstories, it's really cool to watch everybody grow up. And then we get to the high school level and it's that much more competitive, but I mean, Tommy's in a position. I was like, he's going to throw the chin whip. He does this every time he gets in this position. Boom, hits it. It was just like you could call the match before it started. It's kind of cool to see how that kind of juggles out. So it is. It's that family camaraderie until you face each other. But it's that
even when you face each other,
it is. There's no bad blood.
Mm-hmm.
None.
So with that being said,
except for against the CWAC.
Absolutely, we're all united against them.
I think that is all over the place. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes because I messaged a buddy of mine who is the radio guy in CWAC covering. He's going to be covering the Prosser game this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that, and he was already starting the chirp, 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 and it's not just coaches and it's not just players doing the chirping. So with that being said, we're at the end of the season. We're winding down. You guys, like you said, it's time to decompress. Let's get through what Matt Classic. But I want to jump ahead now 10 months. What are your teams both look like in 10 months?
Well, I think
go ahead, Marcus.
We're losing 8 seniors this year. The cupboard's going to be a little bit bare, but we're growing. We got some good freshmen. I don't know what to say. We got any All-Americans. coming up yet, but there's some good, strong freshmen with some good core fundamentals. And we were talking about Izzy and Ivan, and their dad's the middle school coach in Pullman, so they have a good foundation of a broad set of skills that they try to pick up from Angel. And there's a few club kids still from the old clubs that we used to run back in the day, and some of them are starting to come through too. So this last group of seniors and some juniors on my team are the last little kid club team that I had. So some of these kids I've coached since they were 4 or 5 years old. So it's according to the same boat. It's how long have we been there with Bodie? I mean, he's same day.
Oh yeah, same day. Yeah, since day one. So, I'm in the same boat as Marcus. I'm going to be young. I'm only going to have 3 seniors next year. I'm going to be relying a lot on my group, my freshmen and sophomores and juniors. And honestly, I'm only going to have like 4 or 5 juniors. Everybody else is going to be freshman and sophomore. And that's my team. And I've got a good junior high program. Mark and Valdez, Toby Valdez, they're really good coaches. Mark coached with me last year. They seem to get the numbers up. So we'll see what happens. All my kids seem to want to wrestle off-season stuff, do freestyle and Greco with Dan, our new coach, Dan Maurer. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming on tonight, talk a little bit of wrestling, Matt Classic. Now it's time for you guys to kind of take a step back and watch your kids. Now, Corey, I know Bodie's getting ready to play his senior year as a Bantams second baseman. Marcus, do you have any rooting interest now in track and field or baseball now that wrestling's done?
I don't. My daughter's big into dance, so I become dance dad come spring season. So I'll there may or may not be a finale with the dance dads that need a little liquid courage to get on stage, but we end up doing it towards the spring recital. So my team usually shows up for that one and gives me a good ribbing. But yeah, it's about to go into dance dad mode, and pretty excited for that too.
Yeah, and as soon as we stepped off the wrestling mat for the last time, it was very emotional for Bodie, for me, because I knew it was the last time I was going to get to coach him, and it went right into baseball mode. It's time for that, and then we'll see sometime this spring if he takes the trip that he has planned with a kid from Marcus's team. We'll see what happens. They might be heading up north for a wrestling trip. We'll see. But yeah, exactly.
Well, we appreciate you guys for hanging out. Let us talk about how this season went. Congratulations on all the success that you guys had, and best of luck going into next season. As you said, there's a lot of turnover, as there always is in high school sports, but always the fun of bringing in the new group and getting them ready for competition. So Corey, Marcus, I appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah. Hey, I want to say one thing.
Go for it.
Congratulations, Kylan. Congratulations, buddy. And congratulations to the girls basketball team too for Clarkston. That is awesome. Way to go, Debbie.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be an emotional couple of weeks going in to state tournament over at the Sundome in Yakima. But gentlemen, we do appreciate it. Marcus, thank you for being the first out of the LC Valley coach to join us on the R&R Sports Report. Hey, we'll have you back on anytime, sir.
Hey, it sounds great. I appreciate it. I had a background in radio too, so I feel it. I miss being behind the mic. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Yep.
All right. That was Coach Corey Thieveridge of the Clarkston High School wrestling team and Coach Marcus Crossley of Pullman. Listen, I've watched some of those videos. It is crazy environment at Mac Classic, and I bet you those guys are just enjoying their Monday, President's Day, not working and just detoxing, relaxing.
Right. Well, we definitely appreciate that. Let's stay with the local stuff. Let's stay on the Washington side of the river. Let's talk about that girls Clarkston Bantams team who continues to be insane. I've been lucky enough to see them a few times this year, whether it was the Vista Holiday Tournament, Golden Throne. Just again, what Debbie has been able to build over there has been phenomenal. And now they get into crunch time. Talk about how they've gotten into the tournament and what they're looking forward to now.
Yeah, they finished up district play this past week. Thursday, they took care of Rogers pretty handily in that one, and then took care of West Valley on Saturday afternoon. You have both MVP, co-MVPs of the league playing in that game. Kendall Wallace averaging almost 16 points a game, and Chloe DeHaro from West Valley. And I was more impressed with that Clarkston defense did with Chloe in that game. She still got her 11 points, but her 11 points all came from the free throw line. Clarkston held her to no field goals whatsoever. So great job by that defense. And I think that's what's going to get this team farther along in the tournament. As we were saying, opening round will happen on Saturday, and we will travel over to Kennewick, and we finish up the season again, number 5 in the RPIs. There's been so much talk about the RPIs and how things are looked at and all that. Perfect 23-0 and not be the number 1, but it boils down to strength of schedule and strength of the opponent. But sir, when do you start putting in the margin of victory? I mean, some of those doubling up the opponents, like the game against West Valley, they ended up knocking off West Valley 75-31. So a huge outpouring of points from 4 different girls. Lexi Villavicencio, Wallace had 15, Villavicencio 14, Teasley with 13, and Ella Levitt with 10, and all but one scoring again. That's the third straight game that they've had everybody score except for one player, and it's just crazy.
You see that a lot. Usually when you see a box score like that, that means the team's dominating enough where they're bringing everybody in and everybody's good enough where they're getting points, and that's what drives me nuts. Again, I'm on the Idaho side of things, and we deal with our own issues, but they get for the most part, Idaho has everything just straight up locked in. There's no wiggle room very much as far as at-large bids go for basketball. It's for the Inland Empire League. There's 4 teams. 1 team gets guaranteed in, and second place gets to go play in a state play-in game. And then you have your 8 teams, and that's where things can get a little dicey as far as the seedings go there. For Clarkston, like you said, the GSL's kind of been down this year, so their strength of schedule looks rough. Obviously, being this close to the state of Idaho, you play a couple of tougher teams from Idaho that Washington just doesn't recognize in the same light. I kept hearing different people go, well, they should have played Lapway, or they should have played this team. Or it's like, well, they played the Avista Holiday Tournament. Right? That's it. That's where they have a chance to play Lapway. They play Downey, and they played some really tough teams down there. And like you said, they just straight up dominated the league. So at that point, would I be mad if they didn't get the 1 seed? Not really, but I'm just shocked they weren't even a top 4. Like, technically, they're playing a team that whatever committee is out there believes is better than them. And that is kind of shocking.
Yeah, and you look at that whole team setup and how they all boil down, and we'll talk 1 second. So the top 8, will play. The winner will move on to Thursday the 29th. The loser will end up playing on the 28th. But with that being said, some of these teams that come in are 4-loss teams, 5-loss teams. So Clarkson, who is a 5 seed, will take on the 19-5 Prosser Mustangs, who get the 4 seed, which it just blows you away how these are set up. But they make it in there. And so now I saw a couple of quotes by Debbie Sabota and saying, we're going to rise up and play to what they feel is the disrespect part, and that is going to fire them enough. And so it will be.
What Debbie Sabota needs to say?
What's that?
Acknowledge me.
I think the girls want them to hear that. And with that being said, because they deserve it. Now, the big thing that this team's going to have, they have the speed, they have the defense. The true big person, I think, is where they might lack a little bit in, can they be dominant down in the post with Eloise, with Ryan? It will be very interesting to see what that happens. So Clarkson girls will play Saturday at Kamiakin High School against Prosser at 12 noon on Saturday. You can catch the call on 92.1 FM with yours truly. Not sure who else is going in that one, but it will be a great matchup. And I want to shout out one other team. Let's look at the boys' side for a second. Came down to Pullman Greyhounds and Rogers on Saturday for the boys championship out of District 8, and Pullman comes up just a tad short to Rogers, who Rogers has turned that program around huge, and Rogers ends up picking up the 7 seed, and this team is very good. Pullman falls in this one. They had been number 1 for a while, number 2 for a while. They end up going in as a 9 seed this weekend and will travel to Cheney to take on Enumclaw in their matchup for the opening round. For Pullman, though, a little bit different from Clarkson. Pullman, it's a loser out as they are a 9-16 team.
Yeah, and as far as go back to the Clarkson girls real quick, and you look at the way that Washington does their state tournament, the big thing for Clarkson, yes, you can be upset about being the 5th seed and you can feel slighted, you can feel disrespected, but now you got to go out there and play. Doesn't matter who you're going up against. Go out and get the win here, earn yourself your bye in the next round of the tournament, which I love the way they do it. It's kind of Aussie rules football-ish in a way, where the top 8 seeds all play each other, kind of give you a preview of some of what you could see possibly later on in the state tournament. Try to earn yourself a little bit of a cushion and 1 extra day off. Those in the bottom have to really work their way in. So I love the way Washington does that. And as you said, for Pullman, just missing out on their top 8. We'll have to go a little bit longer. Look now on the Idaho side of things, and we'll look at how the 6 divisions all panned out for the girls' state tournament. Only one really local team was able to come away with a championship, and that was the Kendrick Tigers, who that whole school is just winning things left and right. We talk about football all the time. The girls needed overtime to defeat Dietrich in Class 1A Division II championship game, their first state title since 2002. First time since they split between Divisions 1 and 2. And, of course, next year everything gets all shaken up. Anyways, Grace did defeat Lapway in the Class 1A D1 championship, 47-40. Was following along with Brandon Walton, who is a friend of mine, who's a sports writer in Southern Idaho, who was at the state championship games. He was there all day long and updating stuff on his Twitter. So I was kind of following along while I was doing my stuff. Grace is able to win their first title since 2021. Lapway, with all of the changes that they had over the last several years, was really awesome to see them still make it to the state championship game. Just fell a bit short. Grangeville, who won the state title last year, got to the semifinals in 2A before losing to North Fremont 43-42. Again, getting the updates. It felt like neither team could pull away. I think it was Taryn who had the Tribune article on it that I read, where neither team led by more than 4 points the entire game. Just a really good one, but the Bulldogs fall short. And then North Fremont lost to Bear Lake in the championship game, 41-35.
To a free throw. That I think that's the hardest point. Is
the
Grangeville,
and
so tough one there.
That's how Grangeville lost. It was the first 2A state title for Bear Lake, their first state title since 1999 when they won in 3A. Snake River wins back-to-back titles in 3A. They took care of Teton 53-45. Shelley wins their first 4A state title and their first title since they won in 3A back in 2008, and they did it in undefeated fashion. 25-0 on the year, and they take out Skyline 59-49. talked about it many times on here, how the Lewiston girls had a tough year. They were very young, 0 seniors on that squad. Did not help that you ended up facing the two teams that ended up in the championship game. Lake City dominated the entire year. I think they lost 2 games all year. One was in the district championship game where they got upset by Coeur d'Alene, and Coeur d'Alene ended up, getting the automatic bid. Lake City had to work their way through the state play-in game to do so. Both teams were phenomenal. Vikings had won it last year, struggled early on in the year, but you could definitely tell a difference from the first time that I watched them play and the second time I watched them play. The team was a completely different group on the court, and the Vikings do win back-to-back state titles as they beat Lake City 58-49. And of course, this is the last year before all of the divisions change, and now we get up to 6A. Class 1A turns in or gets rid of their 2 divisions. So a lot of schools are going to stay the same. They're just going to have a different number as far as what division they are in. But the big change, of course, Lewiston staying in 5A, while everyone else that they normally face moving up to 6A, and will really change a lot of stuff there. Boys still in action. Another reason why we're doing this show on Monday is Robert has his wrestling stuff. I will be up in the Coeur d'Alene area to call the Lewiston Bengals and Lake City Timberwolves. This is a loser out game after Lake City got upset at home against Post Falls, and Lewiston went up against a really good Coeur d'Alene squad. We talked about it last week, how we were pretty sure as long as Lake City had won their game on Tuesday that Lewiston was going to be the 4 seed on the 4th tiebreaker, and that was exactly the case. So they got the rough draw of taking on the Vikings. Great start for the Bengals. They jumped out, I want to say it was 8-2 to start that game, but you could just feel like the Vikings were getting ready to pounce, and the Bengals really needed to continue their run. And then the last 3 or 4 minutes of that first quarter, just the amount of turnovers that happened, the amount of mistakes that happened in those last couple of minutes, you just felt like the momentum was dropped by Lewiston. And unfortunately for them, Coeur d'Alene got their offense going in the second quarter. I want to say they scored 26 points in that second quarter, and then from there just ran away with it. Bengals are a very good team. They really are hot and cold offensively, and it was definitely a cold night last Friday. So now Lewiston, if they want to make it to state, have to win 3 straight games. It starts tomorrow against Lake City. They win that game, they'll play Thursday at either Post Falls or Coeur d'Alene, whoever loses the championship game tomorrow. And if they're able to win that game, they'll play in Grangeville on Saturday against a team from Southern Idaho, just like they did last year. And they'll see if they can come away with a win. So Lewiston, not out yet. Still like their chances to beat anybody in this Inland Empire League. But they got to get the shooting going again. We'll see what they can do tomorrow.
Yeah, it's huge. But seeing what this team has done, I've watched them on. It's been nice to be able to watch and follow them on their YouTube channel. But those guys have to stay hot with Bramlett shooting the ball. You got to get, Torpy. One thing I noticed, Torpy has not had a ton of shooting opportunities. I think if he gets a little hot, look out. This team could easily make it into state.
Yeah,
with a lot of emotion.
They have so many young shooters. I love what Jordan Bramlin has done over the last month and a half. He's really taken control offensively as a guard, but they have so many young players that, can get going. And then they just nothing worked on Friday. So we'll see what happens there. Let's move on to the college level. LCSC basketball had their senior night this past weekend. Callie Stevens and Maddie Holm were honored on the girls' side. Of course, Maddie Holm done for the year with her knee injury. Callie Stevens put up a pretty good performance, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, as LC beat Warner Pacific 89-70. But if you talk to Coach Goose after the game, and I did listen to a part of the post-game interview she had with Brian Danner and Bert Sahlberg, she was not too pleased with the performance because LC was up at 40 points at halftime, and it just felt like they took their foot off the gas and never could get going. And obviously, as a coach, you never want to see that happen.
I actually had the opportunity to go to senior night, wanted to be there to support, Sam and Callie and those guys. And got there right at tip, watched the first half, took the grandson. And like you said, they were up 40 in that first half. And then all of a sudden come out in the third quarter and Warner Pacific could not miss in the first almost 4.5 minutes before I want to say it was almost 4 minutes into that third quarter when LC finally was able to get a bucket in there. And so it just felt like the third quarter they forgot half the people in the locker room and needed to come back out and get going.
Yeah, started celebrating a bit too much. They will have a couple of really tough competition games here to end up their regular season. First on Friday at number 16 Oregon Tech, as that will be at 11 a.m. on Friday. And then Saturday, they finish up at Southern Oregon at 3 p.m. For the men, they honored Davion Brown, Jaden Bradley, and Sam Stockton. Stockton, the only one that was able to play the last 4 years. And he's the only player that was there when we started the show and is here now and able to honor all of them. Sam Stockton came out with basically his entire family that we talked about with him last week. I believe he had one sister that is still overseas and was unable to make it, but he had a huge crowd there to root him on. LC with a big 97-72 win. I know you left early on in that game, didn't get to see it. It was fun watching John Lustig as the clock was running out. LC's at 97 points, and you could hear the bench yelling at him because Austin has already said, Austin Johnson, the head coach, is just hold it, no shot, just we're running the clock out. It would be like 2 or 3 seconds left on the shot clock or whatever, and the entire bench was just egging him on, shoot it, just we want 100. And the smirks on his face were pretty funny. It was a good performance, I think, for the men as they look to solidify a home playoff game in the opening round of their conference tournament in a few weeks. They also will be on the road. Do you have Oregon Tech 16th in both?
I think I was a typo when I was writing quickly. I was trying to type extremely fast.
You're good. But Oregon Tech and Southern Oregon, again, are their final two opponents. Oregon Tech, 1 p.m. on Friday, and then Saturday against Southern Oregon at 5 p.m. Baseball will be in action as they were unable to do any of their California trips, so they have not played for a couple weeks. They start play against Cascade opponents, though I don't think this counts as a Cascade conference weekend because I think the first 2 or 3 are just non-conference games. Cascade conference is weird. But they will travel down to Southern Idaho to take on College of Idaho starting at Friday for 1 game doubleheader on Saturday and then 1 on Sunday. Go check out lcwarriors.com for all the other stuff. Dance had a couple of more performances and improved on their scores from their first ever performances. They're doing a good job going up against some of the top 10 dance teams in the NAIA, so they're getting a lot of experience right now. Tennis has been playing so much. Chase and I actually went over and watched the LC women take on College of Idaho and give them a pretty good beatdown. We were over there for about an hour. They're getting ready to go off to Louisiana. So just now we're getting to the Kai Fong fun of everyone just goes off everywhere. And it was a quiet weekend for LC track and field. They only broke 4 records. So
just 4?
Just 4. It was a pretty disappointing weekend. No, they've again have just been ridiculous what they've been doing. Check all that stuff out at lcwarriors.com. Either it's Alicia or myself doing those articles for you to check out over there. But right now I want to get into it. Let's get off the local stuff now. Let's get into the national news. Let's have some fun. And let's talk about what just closed up, an hour and a half ago. And that was the Daytona 500. Rain pushed it to Monday afternoon. And it felt like the drivers were a bit antsy waiting there the extra day because they wreck within the first 7 laps. And then everything calmed down. You get your normal Daytona stuff. I actually was watching Twitter throughout because there's so many people that get so mad at these broadcasts. And I'll agree, there are way too many full screen commercials for a NASCAR race. I mean, there were just not very many caution flags for them to throw commercials in. But I like the split screen, at least, so you can kind of keep an eye on stuff. But that the end of the first stage to me was really fascinating, with the fact that most of the field went into the pits during that first caution. So they had 9-10 laps more fuel in their cars. But the cars up in front were trying to save fuel to try to make it through the entire first stage, to the point that the entire field was driving 3 seconds slower as a pack. Now, anybody that doesn't watch NASCAR, these restrictor plate races, they have a thing in their car that makes sure everyone kind of gets limited on their speed. But when you're in a pack and you mess around with the airflow and stuff, you can go faster as a group. Except for this part where everyone was driving at like 40% speed. And there was a driver, I think it was AJ Allmendinger, who was all by himself. And he was driving 3 miles an hour faster by himself than the pack was. He was catching the pack at that point. Just wild stuff. And then, of course, the fuel stuff changed everything. Pretty standard race from there until they got to about 30 laps to go. And then you could just feel like somebody revved up the intensity. They have the big wreck that you see in these restrictor plates all the time. Somehow Chase Elliott escaped all of it. I've watched that replay 30 times. I still don't know how he did. But in the end, was it William Byron? Am I losing my mind? Yeah, William Byron comes away with the win. It was a Hendrick car on the 40th anniversary of Rick Hendrick Motorsports. But it kind of felt a little calmer at the end. And I honestly, at the end, I even sent my mom a text after the Daytona 500 saying, for as great as this race was, it ended with a big wet fart, because they wrecked right as they crossed the line for the final lap. And in NASCAR, once you hit the white flag, the next flag ends the race. It literally lasted 100 feet past the start-finish line, and then boop, that was the end of the race. And for as much as it built up for that last 40 laps, that last section of the final lap just felt like a disappointing way to end that race.
Yeah, 100%. As we gave our predictions of who we thought was going to win, so I was really focusing on Keselowski and what he was doing. He, at one point, he was all the way up at second, third, and then next thing you know, he had dropped all the way back to 22nd, and he had got back up there. And I really thought we were down to the final 10 laps, and I'm like, okay, he's got a chance to get a good push, him and Logano. And he just gets nudged a little bit sideways and all over with 8 laps to go, and kind of a crazy restart with those 8 with Chastain there too. I figured Chastain was going to hold off, and he drops back a little bit, but you're exactly right. Coming around that final corner to drop the white flag, and then all of a sudden there it is again. Somebody gets a little crazy. Yeah,
it was wild. Chase Elliott made a mistake early on after that restart, picked the wrong line, and kind of got out of sorts, went back to the back, and kind of took Kyle Busch with him. Those were the two I was rooting for. I know a lot of people hate Kyle Busch, but for his historic career, whether you like him or not, the amount of wins that he has in a NASCAR is just phenomenal, especially this day and age where people just don't win that amount of races. He's never won the 500. To me, it kind of feels Dale Earnhardt-esque. I'm not going to say he's a Dale Earnhardt level by any means, but for him to be there for so long and never win it, and it felt like he was coming out on that outside, and Chase Elliott got in his way, and he sent them both to the back. So disappointing that the two guys I was rooting for to either get their, I guess I both get their first 500, but I'm a big Chase Elliott fan. So that was a little disappointing too. But just kind of a ending to a pretty good Daytona 500 race. And now the NASCAR season starts in full. They go to Atlanta, which they've completely neutered. I hate what they've done with that track now. And we go on from there. Let's move on now back to the basketball side of things. And let's congratulate one Caitlin Clark, who breaks the NCAA women's scoring record with an asterisk, a big giant asterisk. that we'll talk about now. Not of her doing, but she needed 7 points, 6 points that's all she was behind.
Yeah.
And she needed less than 3 minutes. She scored the first 8 points for Iowa against Michigan. She ends up hitting a shot from 35 feet away. It looked like she was doing what we're going to talk about with the All-Star game, just throwing up silly shots, but it was nothing but the bottom of the net. Place went wild. They were able to call a timeout on the next possession, let her celebrate for a moment. She ends up with a school record 49 points on the day, 9 3-pointers, and of course 13 assists because she is a good facilitator as well. Kelsey Plum, who played for Washington, had the former record. She played there from 2013 to 2017. She had 3,527 points. Clark needed 13 fewer games to get to that point. And it might have been 8 which she was needing. And then she just got more than that. But I bring up the big asterisks, and I'll get your thoughts on this. And to me, it just shows how far we've come as a society. We still have a long ways to go. I'm not saying things are perfect by any means. But Lynette Woodard holds the unofficial record at 3,649 points. She played for Kansas back in 1977 to 1981. The reason why Lynette is not recognized as your all-time leading scorer in women's basketball is because back then the NCAA didn't even recognize women's sports at all.
Mm-hmm.
So technically it was just a club and not NCAA or AIA. Oh, there you go. The fact that they have not gone back and recognized this stuff is insane to me. But I guess it's like the NFL where they have video of all of their old football games, but they won't go back and figure out old sack leaders. Like sacks started in 1970, and anything before it, we just will not go back and count. That's what the NCAA did. Also, Pearl Moore has over 4,000 points. She scored that in a Division II school for Francis Marion. That was also in the 1970s, which NCAA doesn't count either way. But again, Caitlin Clark doesn't have to worry about that. She is the record holder and the top one in the books. And what a phenomenal player she is.
And she's a great player. And I mean, the thing that I've been thinking about after she broke this and what she does on the floor and from where she hits on the floor, it makes you start to think about what is she going to look like once she gets into the pro level. And, do you throw the names of Cheryl Swoops to Lisa Leslie to Diana Taurasi? Do you see Caitlin Clark's name surpassing and even Miller? I mean, do you see that name surpassing what some of these WNBA ladies have done?
The WNBA are begging for somebody like Caitlin Clark, because not only she's a fantastic shooter, she's a fantastic ball player, but she's a good personality. And like you see all her highlights all the time. She's very intense on the court. You either love her or you hate her. And that's exactly what the WNBA needs. You need personalities. It's not just about skill level. You need to have. This is why, like, anybody ever gets mad at me about liking professional wrestling or, oh, wrestling is fake. And I did my best with our 2 head coaches earlier today, not to make my normal professional wrestling jokes. So I wanted to respect what they actually do. And like amateur wrestling is ridiculous, and hats off to anyone that does that. But there's a reason why we go and watch football or we go watch basketball over amateur wrestling is just a normal group. And it's because the personalities that you're able to see, like wrestling is very tight knit. They're a family. You can get some over the top personalities here and there, but for the most part, it's nose down and get your work done. And it's because like professional wrestling is this whole, like, it's so much different than amateur wrestling. We watch football, we watch basketball because there's personalities that we can love, we can hate. WNBA doesn't really have that right now.
Mm-hmm.
like Brittany Griner, I guess, could technically be categorized in that, just from a political side of stuff, with everything that happened on with Russia and how all of the news stations ran that story into the ground, and then people loved or hated her from everything that happened there. But I think that's a different thing. Like, you need a Caitlin Clark to try to boost the ratings, to then try to get the money revenue that I think they feel like they deserve. And this could be a good step. Another really good step for them is the one positive that I will take from the All-Star weekend in the NBA. We'll transition to that real quick, because neither of us are NBA guys. Like, we enjoy basketball enough, mostly at the high school level. We'll follow LC. We get into March Madness. Once you get to the NBA, I just can't do it. Like, it's just rough. But the one thing I will take from the All-Star weekend, from what I saw, was, did you see the special 3-point contest that they held this weekend?
I forgot all about it being NBA All-Star weekend until Richie and I were bowling. I subbed with Richie last night, and they were throwing up replays and watching some of these guys shooting in the regular game and where they were shooting from.
Right.
I was just blown away.
So Damian Lillard wins the normal 3-point contest, but then they have a special one-on-one between the Warriors' Stephen Curry and the WNBA's, and I hope I say her last name right, Sabrina Ionescu. And Sabrina was, I believe, 2 points shy of beating Curry in this 3-point contest. She actually had the same amount of points as Damian Lillard had in the championship round of the actual 3-point contest. She was phenomenal. And hopefully we see this more and more. And you start getting Caitlin Clark in it to get more eyes on WNBA players. They've tried this sometimes with the skills challenges and get WNBA players involved. But I thought that was really cool. And yes, the LED court, I have not watched any of the highlights of the All-Star game, and I've definitely put game in quotes. But watching the highlights of the slam dunk contest and the 3-point shootout with this LED court that they were using, that is how you bring in new fans to your sport, is the technology that they used there. And I'll have you look it up after the show, but it was phenomenal. What was not phenomenal was the All-Star game itself. Adam Silver, 29-26. It was a 3-point thing. Thank you. But I got the pronunciation right. That was all that mattered. Adam Silver, before the All-Star game, came out and said he wanted more of a competitive game, and they were going back to a normal game and not. Eric gave me the term for what they were doing, where it was they played their 3 quarters and then they set a score goal at the end, and whoever reached that goal first wins. They got rid of that, went back to a normal game. They wanted a more competitive game, and instead, the East beat the West 211 to 186. The Elam ending there. That's the term for the other version of that. And the only thing I've seen from this All-Star game is the ending where Adam Silver is rewarding or giving out the trophy or whatever to the East for winning it. And basically Adam Silver, in the most disappointing tone, said, "Well, East, you scored more points. Congratulations." Like, you could tell he was seething inside and embarrassed about what was on that court. What does the NBA have to do to fix their All-Star game? And in the end, does it even matter?
How about they fix their regular season and make these guys play defense? That's
they
try
with the in-season tournament, which shows that the NBA players, will care at times. But the regular season is beyond too long, and they spread things out so much that it becomes impossible to watch.
And 100%, but just to try to even follow with what these teams do, I think how do you fix it? Do you take and make this a shorter contest? Do you really trim up the time, try to do everything on one day. There's got to be something to motivate these, but these teams are wanting to make more money, and they that's why they need the weekends they do. But it's to the point of I wouldn't want to use the word sickening, but it felt that way watching a few of the highlights, that these guys are pulling up from half court to take a shot, pulling up from 35 feet, take a shot, instead of, they want to see, the players want to see what the other players can do. And so that's why there's no defense. There's no nothing. Who can outdo who is what it feels like in this game, instead of, like I was telling Richie, back in the 80s, in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, when you made the All-Star game, you still played the All-Star game as physical as you did. I mean, the Bill Laimbeer, you physical, get in the paint kind of games. Nowadays, you don't. I mean, we talked about him making a small wager on the over for the points for this game, and he ended up winning. It is just crazy.
Yeah, and I agree. The Elam ending had some good finishes, but the rest of the All-Star game was basically the way the Elam ending worked is the first 3 quarters were for what the All-Star game is, and the glitz and the glamour and the ridiculous shots and the goofiness and the alley-oops. And then the fourth quarter, they really played. And that was all I watched, was the fourth quarter of these All-Star games, because, all right, we got the best going at it, and we had some fun. But this is where I want to just say, screw it. We had this problem with the Pro Bowl, yeah? What did they do? Let's make it a full weekend of silly skills challenge games and have a flag football game at the end, just for shits and giggles, and we're all going to have fun. Yeah? Well, people went, well, we don't really like the flag football game. So they went, okay, well, we'll take some of these skills that you like, and then we'll mix them in with the flag football game. And it seemed to work a bit better. Like, people watched it more than normal. I don't know what the ratings ended up being, but it seemed like less people panned it because it's just a celebration. It's here for fun. So I'm with you. Instead of having one night with the 3-point contest and the slam dunk contest, mix those in. Have the 3-point contest in between, or at halftime. Put the slam dunk contest in between the first and second quarter, or whatever you want to do. But for the game, because nobody cares anyways, and it's not really a competition. Do you remember those old 1990s MTV basketball games that they would have? Thanks again for Eric with our conversation. The Rock and Jock basketball games. Do you ever remember these?
Not offhand.
There was basically real life NBA Jam. It was their whole idea. Not the crazy over the top dunks and stuff, but they had the hot spots. So they'd have a circle out way beyond the 3-point line that was worth 5 points, or one at half court that was worth 10. And then they had one basket. Eric, help me if I get it wrong, but there's one basket that was like 20 or 25 feet in the air. So it was above the actual basket, and it was worth more points. So just do that. Again, if you go back and watch this LED court that they were using, you could have, they did it for like the celebrity games, like a hot spot could move around. So do that. And just go way over the top with it and have them throwing up those ridiculous shots. Like that's the whole point of this stuff, right? Is to watch them put on a show. Luka Doncic before the show throwing a basketball as high up as the scoreboard and having it come down and in. Steph Curry doing his full court shots that he was doing before the games and stuff. That's what people are there to watch anyways. So just make the game that.
Yeah. What's funny is all of these things now, and we talked a little bit about it with how silly all of them have become. You look at the golf matches of the fundraisers that they do in Reno and all of that. They have like the Steph Curry taking the shot from the tee box over, and I forget which hole it is in Lake Tahoe that they do that on. But I mean, it's what the fans are wanting to see is the goofiness. I don't know. Maybe I'm still very old school, and I want to see the game actually happening with your skill level in there. Not let's just throw it up and see if it falls down.
Yeah, I'm watching. See if I can pull this up. We'll probably get in trouble for it, but whatever. But they have. Here we go. They have a hoop way up there that they're trying to hit. And then they have different hot spots and all that stuff. That's just go goofy with it. Now with the LED floor, you can have a really good time, I think. And that's just what I'm saying. But it's garbage anyway, so it don't matter. All right, let's move on. Again, football season is done. So we don't have all of our normal stuff to fill out these 2 hours, though. As always, we run behind schedule and we make things work. We get into these fun dialogues. And we have a good time. But it is time to bring back the sports-related draft. If you not know what this is, one of us comes up with a topic, though this week or the next 2 weeks will be me coming up with the topic. The other person will get the very first pick. We will go through 3 rounds, creating a team of either athletes or moments or foods or whatever the topic suggests. We build our teams, and then you out there let us know who wins.
I win this week.
It's not true.
I have the GOAT. Bottom line, I win. All
right, we'll talk about it. But as I said at the beginning of the show, it is a leap year. It is February, which is the leap month. February 29th is 10 days away. And so, because next week I already have one locked in, ready to go, let's do the greatest leaps of all time. You can, I was doing my best to try to find the greatest leap of faith or something. There's a play called The Leap of Faith, and it's a terrible play by Taysom Hill for BYU. So I did not want to put that on my list. But I picked the topic, so you get the first pick. Go ahead.
Listen, there was a couple on this list that I didn't even put on that I would have easily, if we had 5 rounds, I would have been able to hit 2 others that I didn't even choose. But when you talk about a leap, and if you don't have this number 1 in your picks, you've been sleeping under a rock. And especially when you got to take the GOAT, the greatest of all times, you take Michael Jordan in his 1988 dunk during the slam dunk contest against Dominique Wilkins, and watching him leap from the free throw line on his second attempt. Let's get it straight. I know a lot of people will say, oh, he missed the first one. Yes, he missed the first one, went back, did it again. And one of the most iconic looks, the extension, all Michael Jordan.
And 30 people have done it in the slam dunk contest since.
But he is the OG. He is the GOAT, and that's all that matters.
Is it?
Yes, 1,000%.
I mixed around different home run robberies for mine. I was trying to come up with the best one. And there's so many to choose from. I went with Gary Matthews Jr. If you ever look up his clip, what made his so improbable is he actually jumped in the wrong spot off the wall and had to reach behind himself. And I still have no idea how he reached back and kept the glove in a position to catch the baseball as it was going over the fence. So not only did he have to get up high enough to reach the baseball, but because he was in the wrong angle, he had to reach back weird, and you would have thought it would have hit the glove and bounced out. Go back and watch. One of the highest jumps I have seen as far as one of those home run robberies, and that's why it is number 1 on my list. There was a lot to choose from. I had Ichiro on there for a moment and then changed my mind. I didn't want to give too much love to a Seattle Mariners, so there you go. I will take the Greg Matthews Jr. home run only because I didn't think you were going to take this next one, and I'm a little mad about it.
So now you're telling me that I win.
No, this was going to be my 3rd round pick, so I didn't think you were going to take it.
I've seen some unbelievable jumps, some growing up from the era of watching Walter Payton jump over lines and what he could do. He was going to be an honorable mention with a couple of them. The Troy Polamalu, him jumping over to make the tackle
Yeah.
at the goal line is still one of my favorite plays. It didn't even make it was an honorable mention, but what Jerome Simpson did. Yes, I am picking a Cincinnati Bengal. It pains me, an AFC North guy, but what that guy did to jump over Daryl Washington just a couple years ago on just a couple years. It's been 13 years. Holy cow, it's been that long. But Jerome
That's
Simpson's
the catch I was talking about. So
yes,
high up there. But anyways, go
yeah,
ahead.
but the Jerome Simpson catch where the Cincinnati receiver jumps basically turns a 19-yard touchdown run and flips over Washington to get in the end zone. One of the craziest flips and catches into the end zone. And he stuck the landing too. That's the best part of it.
That is why I was set to make it one of my 3, is because he stuck the landing. And the reason why I didn't just take it with my first pick was because, as you said, there were so many other NFL leaps and jumps that really stand out to people. So I really thought that one was going to sneak under the radar, and I was going to be able to take it a little bit later. It's a good pick by you. I'll give you that. However, you have to play to your audience.
Yeah.
And I knew, because one, Eric Watkins I knew was going to be hanging out with us tonight, because he will be on the next episode of Bad Brackets, which I am recording right after this episode. So I knew he would be around and watching this show. I knew I had to go Aussie Rules football. We're just a couple of weeks away from the regular season starting. So you had to go to the greatest mark of all time, all the way back in 2001, Gary Moorcraft. Again, this is a play or a situation that you show people that do not watch Aussie Rules football and go, look at the craziness that happens in this sport. Because you can run up behind somebody and jump up and put your knee in their back and then lift yourself up to make the catch. For Moorhead, he doesn't put it in his back. He basically puts his knees on top of this defender who's like 6 feet something, and then sits perfectly up on his shoulders and then reaches back to make this catch. It's ridiculous. And I need to look it up, and I'll show it to you, those that watch. And again, YouTube will probably get mad at it, but I don't care. It was that good of a catch.
Yeah, I mean, very fair enough. It is one of the best catches. I remember, I don't remember if it was you that showed me or if it was Eric that showed me once I started watching a few years ago. But for what this guy does, I mean, phenomenal. But you're playing to his strength, but he's not going to be the only vote tonight. I hope not, at least. But oh, come on!
There you go. For those that don't know, look how high up he gets on that catch. It's insane what he's able to do. Knocks himself silly and takes the wind out of him. That's it. This is why we love this sport. It's just the silliness like that, and just the athletic. Look at how high he gets up there. A better jump than Michael Jordan.
Well, I'm talking iconic, but anyway.
Yeah, that's iconic. That's the most iconic play ever in Aussie Rules football. The greatest mark of all time.
But how many people have actually seen that play now?
All of Australia. All of Australia. All right, give me your third pick.
So we talked about there's so many different other catches that we could have went. I could have went really old school and went with Willie Mays. Still one of my favorite catches of all times has to be the Jim Edmonds catch, diving towards the wall when he was playing for Anaheim. But I went with one. Yes, it's a little more homerish. If this is why I lose, I don't care. Ken Griffey used to make some of the best. Some of the best plays that ever happened. I'm taking away home run in Detroit. It is still a big one. What he did with that one, but what he did to Albert Bell in the Kingdom, one of the last games as things were starting to, they knowing that the kingdom was getting ready to go down and all that, but his methodical run against that to go up and catch that ball, sticks his foot in the wall, in the cleat mark, everything, and take away the home run from Albert Bell was just crazy. And it just looked like he was in slow motion the entire time, his eyes on the ball. They did not replace that. I remember they made a big thing because that was one of the first opening games of this homestand. And so they didn't go out, and maintenance didn't fix the pad for like 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. And you kept watching when he'd make plays, and you'd see this pad still have the cleat mark in it for like 3 weeks before they finally decided to do it. But what he could do with his body and shift it around, it's unbelievable. And you even said it too. One of Ichiro's catches, couple of catches that he had, still
so
Spider-Man. Yeah, there's so many, but I'm gonna go with the kids. So give me Junior.
All right, my final pick was an easy one to pick once you stole the Simpson front flip from me. To take its place for my third pick. And yes, Michael Jordan, the iconic free throw dunk. And yes, he's the GOAT. Neither of us disagreed there. But he's not the GOAT at dunking. He's not the best dunker in the NBA. And now there's people that aren't in the NBA that just specialize at dunking, and you watch their videos on YouTube and it's insane. But the best dunker in the history of the National Basketball Association is one Vince Carter. Vinsanity took over the late 1990s, early 2000s. He has an entire slam dunk contest where all three of his dunks are top 10 dunks of all time. But I'm not talking about any of those dunks because anybody can do a cool dunk when nobody's guarding you. But how about in the 2000 Olympics when Vince Carter jumped over and posterized a 7-footer in the name of Frederick Weiss? And yes, again, anybody could jump over a 7-footer in a slam dunk contest. You saw it 5 times this year as Shaq was out there. Like, I watched the highlights of this year's slam dunk contest, and I think he was out there 3 times for people to jump over him. But he wasn't trying to block him. Mm-hmm. Vince Carter went over a defender who was 7 foot tall and slammed it home, and it is now nicknamed the Dunk of Death. And that right there is one of the greatest leaps of all time.
I have to ask you this though, and this is it's because I saw a picture of this. I want to say like 3 or 4 days ago, before you decided this was our draft, and we were talking, and I saw it, and it was a picture that was messed with, picked people in it, but the best dunkers in NBA All-Star games. They had Jordan, they had Dominique, they had Vince, they had Carter. Mm-hmm. They also had Kobe Bryant. I would not take anything away from Kobe being a dunker or what he could do with the basketball, but I would easily put Dominique in front of that. I would easily put Sean Kemp in front of that as dunking the ball. But it was just crazy to see that picture float up, and then 2 days later you said, "Oh, let's talk about leaping and jumping." But I don't think I don't think that Carter is one of the best ones to ever do it. He does have some good dunk, but as far as the best
dunker, let's stop. All right, let us know in the comments who won this week's sports-related draft. For Robert, he took the free throw line dunk from Michael Jordan in 1988. He took the Jerome Simpson's front flip for the Cincinnati Bengals back in 2011, and Ken Griffey Jr. robbing Albert Bell in 1996. That is his team. My team consists of Gary Matthews Jr. robbing a catch that he had to do all sorts of weird contortionist stuff to complete. Gary Moorcraft with the mark of ever, the greatest mark of all time in Aussie Rules football back in 2001, and the dunk of death, Vince Carter over a 7-footer in the 2000 Olympics. Let us know in the comments who wins this week's sports-related draft. Again, usually next week, Robert would come up with a topic, but I already got one lined up, ready to go. Getting this back into rotation, we're going to have a lot of fun. And there it is. If Spud Webb was a good one, too. You can't comment on your own thing. It says the thing on. Nice. And it doesn't count as 2 because it's on Facebook and YouTube. That doesn't count either. Nice try. But yes, Eric right now with 1 vote for me. We'll see what happens as we go along with the show. We talked about it earlier. Spring training is this Thursday. Dodgers and Padres kick things off. Everything's going on. I see all these videos of the Yankees showing up at spring training and getting their work in. Everyone's still trying to figure out why the hell Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell haven't signed with a team yet. It is baseball season. Football is back here. It is time to look ahead. And we have 6 shows until opening day. So why not look at every single division, 1 per week? And then that last week, we'll also give you our playoff and World Series and award predictions and all that. So let's look at the one that is the easiest to determine. And the reason why spring training is starting this week, and that is the NL West. Again, the Dodgers and Padres kick us off, so we will kick off with their division. Last year, the Dodgers ran away with it. They had 100 wins. Arizona was decent enough. They had 84 wins. Padres, very disappointing for what they had, 82 wins there. San Francisco under 500 with 79, and then Colorado played baseball at times. It's the nicest thing I could say. Look at some of the key moves for you. First, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they add Eugenio Suarez, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Jock Peterson. They do lose Tommy Pham, Evan Longoria, Mark Melancon. I think they're going to be a pretty decent team, right around that 500 mark. We'll talk about it here in a second when I get Robert's thoughts. Colorado added a bunch of pitching, even though they're in Colorado and pitching never works. At Coors Field, they still refuse to just go out and just get bangers and be that team that they should be. Just go out there and get a bunch of home run guys and beat people 10-8. But they went out and picked up a bunch of pitchers. Congratulations, Colorado, on your 54 wins. San Diego had that big trade. They lose Juan Soto, and they got everybody that was hand-me-downs from the New York Yankees, though I will say I will miss Michael King as he joins that squad along with Johnny Brito, Wandy Peralta, and catcher Kyle Higashioka. They also lose Josh Hader, their closer. They lose Blake Snell, Michael Wacha, so some interesting pieces will be moved around for San Diego. San Francisco didn't really do a ton this offseason. They were very quiet. Hung-Hoo Lee was another international name that came over, and he will play for the Giants. It'll be interesting to watch him play in the outfield. Jorge Soler, Jordan Hicks are okay. Robbie Ray, if he can stay healthy, will be interesting for them as well. But obviously the team that we're all focused on is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who, again, won 100 games last year, but because they can never win this World Series, they get Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Teoscar Hernandez and Manuel Margot and Taylor Glasnow and James Paxton. And I'm sure there's other people that they signed. What, just the haul that the Dodgers have gotten so far in this offseason. Watch them get Blake Snell too, because why not? Tell me why the Dodgers are going to win, their 11th division title in the last 12 years. And tell me by how many games.
Wow. Oh, that's going to be crazy. Here's basically what I think with the whole thing. And yes, they've already started showing, they talk about Ohtani hitting home runs already and what he's doing. I think it boils down to what they're going to keep doing with the starting pitcher. Yeah. Eventually this next year, I'm talking 25, they'll have Shohei pitching again, but to get Glasnow in there as probably going to be their number one, Yamamoto, this pitching staff is going to go in there and just set the tempo right up front. And you still have the leadership of Freddie Freeman in there, Mookie Betts, hands down, do they have the best infield in the game? I just think that that's just going to be way too much for anybody in the NL West to even deal with. I think that's the biggest part is they're going to be stacked starting lineup, and what their leadership and who they've got in this infield, God forbid, health reasons and injury, with a few of them, but Michael Vargas in there, or Miguel Vargas in there, it's going to be huge for this team.
Yeah, it's a complete mess. Obviously, one name that's basically kind of a return too, Walker Buehler, who came back late last year. As long as he can stay healthy after, I believe it was Tommy Johns for him that he missed basically all of 2023 for. The team is absolutely stacked. And as like Eric said, they'll probably win 110 games and then still lose in the NLCS like they do every single year. But just the over-under that Vegas Insiders has provided, they take a bunch of different websites and different over-unders, and they combined all those totals. The Dodgers over-under is at 104.5. The Arizona Diamondbacks are set to finish in second place, and they're set at 83.5. So Vegas is saying the Dodgers are going to win by 21 games. True or false? Is it going to happen?
I don't know if they happen by that many games, but you tell me, out of all of the other rosters, especially a San Francisco team that did not make much moves, San Diego with losing their power, I don't see 20 games, but with what this team can do, it might be a possibility.
Now, usually we give you our rankings where they're going to finish 1 through 5. I want to do it a little different this year because obviously we'll get to our playoff teams and all that stuff in a few weeks. But I want to do over-unders this year, and that is why I put them on here. I just want you to tell me over-under based on the Vegas Insider number, and we will start with those Los Angeles Dodgers. Over or under 104.5 wins for this all-star team they have in California?
I'm going to say over, but it's going to be barely over. I think it's going to be about 107.
Well, if it's way over, then they're going to start breaking records, and we'll see what happens there. Arizona Diamondbacks, 83.5. What do you feel about them?
Arizona it's making some changes. We get Ketel Marte, Suarez there, 83.5. I'm going to say slightly over.
I'm going to say they could get to 90. I love the pitching staff for Arizona. Zach Gallen has really turned himself into an ace. Corbin Carroll has turned himself into the star of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was actually my pick to be on the MLB The Show cover. It ended up being Vlad Guerrero, which is still a fantastic choice with the whole family deal with them. I think if you take the Dodgers out of the picture, actually, if you take the Dodgers and the Braves out of the picture, I think it comes down to Arizona and Philadelphia as to who is that next team as far as talent on their roster. I think Atlanta and the Dodgers are head and shoulders above everybody else right now as far as on paper goes. And then where do you go from there? I think the NL Central is kind of a mess. So then it's Arizona or Philadelphia. And right now I would kind of lean Arizona. So 83.5 I think is a bit low. And I feel pretty confident right now that the Diamondbacks could even inch closer to that 90 win total. I think they're going to be a wild card for sure. San Diego Padres, they are set at 81.5. They've lost a lot of pieces. They brought in a bunch of the Yankees and stuff. We heard a lot last year with the big personalities that San Diego had with Soto and Machado and Tatis, that they kind of butted heads a lot. So now you lose one with Soto, but could that be addition by subtraction where there's just less big personalities there?
It could be, but one name, and I'm going to throw it out there, and I talked about him a few different times last year, and that's first baseman Jake Cronenworth, and
Mhm.
what he can do for this ball club. I think it's huge. I'm very shocked that they basically put them at a 500 team. I think they're a little bit better than that 500 team. Yes, they'd lose the at bats from Soto, but I think they're going to be a lot better. I'm going to take the major. I'm going to take them being closer to 90 wins than Arizona.
I'm taking under. I think they're going to finish under 500. I think the bigger loss was Blake Snell. The starting rotation, when you look at it right now, Joe Musgrove is decent, but I don't think he's a number one guy. He's just maybe he's just not the sexy name, and he's very reliable. Yu Darvish has been very hit or miss over the last couple of years. He's not been the same guy he was with Texas. I love Michael King and what he did as a starter in August and September for the Yankees. I hope he succeeds in the Padres, and I'll be rooting for him. But taking that leap from being a reliever to a starter, sometimes you can hit some bumps. And then your other two, Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito, I don't believe in them at all. So I think pitching is going to be the issue for the Padres. And if they start out sluggish, they're going to be a high focus for teams as far as picking off their other players at the trade deadline.
I'm gonna disagree just slightly on one guy, and that is one that is now out of that big market and now into San Diego. I think Johnny Brito does a little bit better than a 9-7 record. Get out of the big market, and maybe he has a good season there.
It's fair. I mean, again, I liked him as a Yankee. He was kind of there at that 7th, 8th arm, which always had to end up being number 5 because the Yankees can never stay healthy. So I've seen a lot of Brito. And again, as a former Yankee, I wish him the best of luck. San Francisco, 81.5. Because why not? That's what the Giants do every year. Which way are you going to go, sir? Over or under 81.5?
I think it's going to be the under. I really do. They got rid of a few guys that I think could have easily kept them in the race, but this is proven to be a team of or a division of the Dodgers. I mean, who do you throw out there that is a name anymore? Is it Yaz? Is it I mean, who do you have? Logan Webb. I just think this team has taken another step back, especially how quiet they were in the offseason.
Yeah, I was very surprised that they were not bigger names. I would also not be surprised if they end up being the team that takes Blake Snell. I know that the Yankees have an offer out there, and I hope they take it. But I am with Michael Kay. Anybody that doesn't know who he is, he's the play-by-play guy for the Yankees. He has a show over there. I'll listen from time to time. And I watched a clip where he was talking about some of these names that still have not signed and we're getting into spring training. And he says that there's about a week left, that if you're a team that you would want to sign one of these bigger pitchers, whether it's Montgomery or Blake Snell, because after that, then they're playing catch up. And then they're either going to come out and they're not going to be good for the first month or two because they're still trying to get into the rhythm that everybody else was able to get into, or they're going to rush themselves and they're going to get hurt. A lot of people thought that's what happened with Carlos Rodon with the Yankees, was he tried to rush himself and then was just never right and got himself hurt. And then when he came back, he sucked and the Yankee fans booed him forever. And we'll see what happens this year. So Blake Snell could end up there, but they hopefully have to get them there soon. You look at the history for the Giants, and I just had to look it up because it always feels like they're around 500. 79 wins last year, 81 wins the year before. The outlier was 2021, where they won 107. Obviously, 2020, they had a shorter schedule, so we won't talk about that. But before that, 77, 73, 87, 84. Like, this is just, they always end up around 500. It's very difficult to figure out where they're going to go. But because I have Arizona over, I have the Dodgers over, I'm going to say under for San Francisco. But really in that 78, 79 win territory. It'd be really close. And then finally, the Colorado Rockies. Let's not spend a lot of time on them. 59.5 is too much. Give me the under.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under too, especially when you have what I think the only bat in Chris Bryant. So it's I agree what you said at the very beginning. Yeah, they went and got some pitching, but in a park that is a very hittable park and has been for many years, why are you not spending money to get a bat in there? That's just shocking.
All right, real quick before we move off of baseball and hit the rest of the topics for the show, one quote that I saw while we were getting some stuff together, I thought would be really interesting to talk about, and this could take up the rest of the show. We'll see how passionate I get Robert Hagen about this. But Anthony Rendon, who has had a difficult time since signing his huge contract.
What is Harry talking about? For what?
I'm going to guess division winners. We just did NL West, sir. You calm down. Also,
he
no, but some yes.
Harry, stick around because you need to be the tiebreak for me to win tonight's draft.
Tiebreaker.
So, yes, because
I have
I have a vote in there. I turned it in.
No, you did not. That's not how that works. But no, we just did the NL West. We'll do one each week.
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, before we do move off of baseball, Anthony Rendon, who, like I said, has had a struggling time with the Angels since signing that big contract. He can't stay healthy. Came out and had a very interesting quote come out, and you can check out the whole article. I think I read it on ESPN.com. I'm sure it has been covered everywhere, where he basically said that baseball has never been a top priority to him, that it is just a job. And while he enjoys to play the game, there are other aspects of his life that he cares about more. You've been a coach.
Mm-hmm.
You've also been into situations where people get on you about you should care more about this than this. And you can agree or disagree on that stuff. But we're fans. We're passionate. We overthink things. We overbelieve in things. And we put too much emphasis on these sports. So your thoughts on Anthony Rendon saying that baseball has never been a top priority to him?
So for me, I can understand a little bit of what he's trying to say of, okay, it's a job. So maybe for him, it's easy to, as soon as his day's over, drop everything, go away, and forget what has happened during the day. Talking from a guy who hasn't stayed real healthy, which leads to tell me a little bit that the effort that he puts in to it is very minimal, very minor to get things done and to stay on the healthy course. Yes, we all have jobs that are could be less passionate, a mundane job of repetition. But we're talking about a sports athlete, and you have to stay healthy. You have to put time in on your body to be a top level person. And when you go in there with a mindset of saying, well, it's just a job,
mm-hmm.
You're never going to try to improve yourself, to be that person, to be a 100% ball player that is going to better himself, to put his team above everybody else. And it boils down to basically the one thing. He's there to collect a check and then turn it off. Collect a check, turn it off. Mm-hmm. So it just blows me away that somebody who has so much talent does not want to put in the extra work to do it. And just, I got about halfway through the article and I was like, okay, I'm just, why are we feeding this guy money if he doesn't want to try to help his teammates out more?
But that's those are two completely different things. Like I am 100% with Harry here. Do I want passionate guys? Absolutely. However, athletes have to look at this as a business, because guess what? They're a commodity to their owners and to the fans. And with him getting hurt, people do not go, "Oh, Anthony, are you okay?" How are you doing? It's, oh my God, I can't believe we paid him $245 million and he just keeps getting hurt. Now, it sucks for him because he does keep getting hurt. And that has made it very difficult for him to have the same contributions as he did, which has allowed him to get this contract. Now, if he was lackadaisical or he comes out or even on the job, he's not putting in the work and, I've got my money, whatever. Sure, you could call him a bad employee. But that's what he is. He's an employee to the Los Angeles Angels. And there's good employees and bad employees. But like for those that are like, the one quote that you said that bugs me a little bit is he goes home and he shuts it off, and that frustrates you because he's not putting in the commitment. Like, I feel like I put in a lot of commitment to the radio gig and doing a bunch of the stats and stuff to get myself prepared to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about when I cover games or I write articles for Alicia. But when that's done, I'm off to whatever else. Like, I'm not going, sorry, honey, I have to go watch tape now. Like, it's still a job.
Mhm.
I put in the effort for the job, but after the job's done, you wipe your hands of it, you move on for your day. Or for me, the 37 other projects we do.
But the difference between the two, and I'm not taking away from anything like that, because you honestly, and I bring you up very much all the time, you are one of the most data-driven mental people that I have ever met. But we're talking about a job that is writing, or that compared to a athlete that uses his body to try to throw the ball as hard as he can to be that person out on the field on a daily basis. We're not out there running laps. We're not out there doing. It's a total. I think it's a total different job.
But who says he's not putting in that work? He's just not. It doesn't consume his life. I think that's the whole point of the quote. It's if he was told he had to go away from his family for months, even more than what he has to do now, I think he would retire. And I think that's his whole thing, is like, family comes first, and this is just a job. It doesn't mean he's not putting in the work. Who would you rather have? The guy that shows up 9 to 5, does his work, though right now again, this changes a lot because he's been injured so much. So
that's what I was trying to figure out, because I think I saw a stat that said he's only played in 200 of the possible 500 games since him signing the deal. So which leads me to believe that if you don't put in the effort to keep yourself healthy, then
injuries can be fluky too.
Well, fair. I mean, we look at the same thing that happened to Greenlaw in the Super Bowl. Yes, very, very, very valid point.
Are you trying to say that Greenlaw does not put in the work to keep his body healthy? Everyone makes fun of Aaron Rodgers because of his personality and how much he wants it to be about him first. But he didn't blow his Achilles because he didn't put in the work in the offseason. Everyone wants to talk about his darkness retreat. That was during when nobody's doing any work. We just had 2 wrestling coaches on. Like, everyone is allowed downtime. Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, injuries just sometimes they happen, and sometimes they're nagging injuries, and sometimes there are things that pop up that you just can't help. Now, there's others that, we see it a lot of times where an athlete does not get himself prepared, and then he pulls a hammy or something. Like, there's different styles of injuries for all that. But I have no issue with him going, you know what? Especially now, like, the whole thing that he was talking about was like back in his early 20s when he didn't have a family and he didn't have kids, and, baseball was life. I mean, he now tries to play it off where it's never been a top priority, but I guarantee you it was, because that was his ticket. That is what he is trying to do. And we all have jobs that, for the most part we can enjoy, but it's not going to take over our life. And there's others, and I don't blame them either, that they get into a job and it does become their life. We all have different personalities, and we all have different traits, and we all have different focuses. And I'm not going to knock Anthony Rendon for having this feeling. Because you know what? If he never got hurt and he produced for the Angels and then he came out and said this quote, would you react differently?
I don't know. I don't think I would, just because of the simple fact that we're all about the stat side and the number side, and I agree, work is work, downtime's downtime. But when you're trying to produce for a team to get a championship, I think it's the mindset. But you go back and you look at what he's done, 58 games in 21, 47, 43, and only bat 220, only bat 236. When is it time? When should he have said, maybe that should have been 3 years ago, of maybe I need to focus more on stuff that is not baseball. So
what if somebody asked Lamar Jackson right now, and he had that exact same quote coming off an NFL MVP year? He's had his injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Would you feel the same about him, even though when he's out there, he's performing?
I'd be the same with all of them. I mean, as long as you're out there working on to better yourself on a daily, I mean, that's the big thing. And you could bring up that, because that's one frustration that I had at the end of last season, was knowing that he was trying to get basically money. And so he doesn't play the final, 7 games of the season for Baltimore.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it worked
that
out
was
perfectly for him.
That was that for me, from the fan side. And I think you hit on that earlier. I mean, we're fans first, and for it comes as a frustration level to know that he's somewhat healthy enough that he could get it done, but it's all about the bottom line of making the money. So
yeah, and that's the point that I'm trying to make here is, for somebody like Anthony Rendon, and again, if somebody's the exact opposite and work is life, I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. We all do things differently, and we all come at it in different perspectives. But for Anthony Rendon, yes, he's had a rough time since he got to the Angels with injuries, and he hasn't played very well. But you know what? Like, if he came out and just raked this year, absolutely crushed it, stayed healthy, took over for the absence of Shohei Ohtani, put up MVP-like numbers, us as fans would look at him completely different in 2024 than we did in 2023. Do you know who won't? His family. And that's what his priority is on right now. And that's what he wants to focus on, because they have been there through the thick and the thin. They know what kind of work he actually has done. And it would be really interesting to see if Anthony Rendon just went off this year, to see if all of a sudden this quote just disappeared and nobody cared about it anymore.
Fair enough. Yeah, and it's tough to see. And I think maybe that's the side of it too, is knowing what he put up numbers wise when he was in Washington and not having the help in the background. And now you kind of say it, he's going to probably be the main focus in that team, with Mike Trout, Trout, with Trout. And, and so, maybe he's starting to feel the pressure of what this team is going to be putting on his back. And so could be 100% that too.
All right, let's do some quick hitters here before we end it off the show. I appreciated that conversation. Sometimes it's just fun to have different opinions. That's the point of the show. Gonzaga, we've been trying to bring this in for these last couple of shows. We're just real quick. They have 4 games left of the regular season. 3 of them are on the road. They only have 1 win against a quad 1 opponent, which was Kentucky. What does Gonzaga have to do to get themselves into the tournament? Right now, if you go to ESPN and you look at bracketology, they have the Bulldogs as the last team in. Is there a chance the Bulldogs can not win the conference tournament and get the auto bid, but still make it into the tournament? What do they have to do?
I think one big thing happening this past weekend, and I don't know if that has updated yet, but BYU losing this past weekend to Oklahoma State. Helps out. I was talking with Dan Anderson at the scorers table on Saturday that was a big push with that one. But I think that the Bulldogs have to win out the next 4 games, and that's going against that big team of St. Mary's this year. Right now, St. Mary's, I believe, is ranked 18th.
Yeah, they're up there
in the board. I think they have to win all of them.
And see, Harry says they get in, and I'm not sure. I do think that they have to at least win the 3 games that are not St. Mary's. But in doing that, you have to get to the championship game, where again, if you lose to St. Mary's again, you don't get the automatic bid. At least you put yourself up there where it's like we would have, but the St. Mary's team is just so much better. And name value doesn't mean anything. How many times has Syracuse missed a tournament? Right. Gonzaga this year, for whatever reason, just does not have the resume that they usually do. Like, their record is fine, but a lot of the bigger names that they went out to go play have struggled this year, or they beat them. So Gonzaga just doesn't have that resume that they normally do at this point, because they always go out there and schedule high priorities. And it's not because of Drew Timme. He was never that good.
I think the only name they've got on this team that's really helping out is Watson. I mean, you look at, they're missing a few big guys in that lineup. So,
but it also just shows that Gonzaga has kind of turned into that team that has a lot of one and dones, and you're going to have years like this where those one and dones just don't click, and that's what the Bulldogs were built on. 4-year seniors that could not get scholarships elsewhere, and they built this great deal and this great program, and now they become big guys. But yeah, you're looking at their schedule real quick. They have wins against Syracuse and UCLA and USC, and all of those teams suck this year, so that they no longer have those top priority wins as they always do. Pete Weber Missouri Classic was
don't spoil it. I haven't watched it yet.
You could have told me that when I put it in the notes.
I didn't. I just saw it because I jumped into the other stuff on the one below that one. You can spoil it. I'm going to watch it as soon as we're done here.
Well, there was only one good match. You can skip the first 2 matches.
Okay.
No, you can skip the first 2 matches. They were blowouts. Once it got to EJ Tackett and Anthony Simonson, then it got good. But Anthony Simonson does win the first ever Pete Weber Missouri Classic. Pete Weber was out there to give out the trophy. They showed a lot of highlights of Pete Weber throughout his career. I like that they are starting to put names on these different tournaments from some of the legends of the sport. And then Anthony Simonson just goes out there two-handed. By the way, what a rough tournament for everybody as far as the TV showing goes. The right lane was cooked. And Bill O'Neill in the championship game, I don't know how many times he went, what is going on? It was great. It was a lot of fun to watch.
What's crazy is, in the only highlights I saw was Friday stuff, as Pete Weber did not make the cut and all that, and him getting emotional saying that this was his final PBA. He's going to continue on the senior side, the 50s plus, but to see him get emotional and to say basically in a roundabout way that he's leaving it to these young kids, and it's the kids league, and 1,000%. And for him to bring up the names of Tackett, the names of Belmo and Simonson, it was awesome to see that part of him.
Yeah, no more PBA for him. He'll do the senior league, and he still does normal leagues. They talk about it on the broadcast where he does a normal league at a different house in his area. Just be so weird to show up and you're facing Pete Weber on a Wednesday night. It'd be great. All right, real quick, let's go through the WWE Elimination Chamber matches. Harry, you could spoil it if they announced another match for this weekend, because there's only 4 as of right now that are announced for Australia. I would expect them to add something at this point. No new matches.
My question, are you going to get up and watch it live, or are you still going to be awake to watch it live?
I'll probably still be awake. It just honestly, it depends on where my schedule goes. To be honest. So let's go through these 4 matches real quick. We have like 30 seconds. So just Just give me the result. Undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship match between the New Catch Republic, which is Pete Dunne and why am I blanking on his name? The
Taylor
other
Bate.
Englishman.
Taylor.
Yeah, Bate. Thank you, Mr. Bate. Against the Judgment Day. No, I knew they were against the Judgment Day. I just couldn't remember Tyler Bates' name for some reason. Thank you. New Catch Republic, Judgment Day. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go Judgment Day.
I want New Catch Republic. I love that team. Men's Elimination Chamber match: Randy Orton, Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, and L.A. Knight. Who wins?
I'm a huge fan of Drew McIntyre, but I think they want to play up a little bit more of LA Knight. Give me Knight.
Knight, I think, has other plans for Mania. Give me Drew McIntyre. Oh, yeah, the Awesome Truth winning the belts at Mania would make sense, which would mean Judgment Day would win. I was picking New Catch Republic because I thought R-Truth would cost them the titles. Women's Elimination Chamber match: Naomi, Liv Morgan, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Tiffany Stratton, and whoever won the group match today, Raquel Rodriguez is your last spot. Spoilers for Raw for those that watch it later. Becky Lynch is winning this.
Yeah, I think so. As much as I would like to see, I was excited to see Liv back, and now you say Raquel, but I think Becky, that's set in stone for Mania.
Absolutely. And it is because she will take on this person at WrestleMania. Women's World Championship match: Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. Ripley, home country. This will be the main event, and it's going to blow the roof off Perth or whatever, but Ripley wins.
Yeah, I'm going Ripley. You know how I do like Nia Jax. I like her, but I think Ripley wins it over in Australia.
Yeah, you're the only person that likes Nia Jax. That's just it. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the R&R Sports Report. Thank you again to Corey Thieveridge and Marcus Crossler, coaches for the Clarkston and Pullman wrestling teams, for coming on the show earlier today. We had a really fun conversation with them. By the way, don't forget to watch this week's episode of Bad Brackets. Harry Broadhurst was part of that show, as was Eric Watkins and Robert Taylor, as it was the 90s sitcom. So go check that out. We've hit double digits for subscribers, so thank you guys so much. We're slowly building over there. And again, right after we're done here, we're going to record next week's episode, and Addie and Jaslyn, my daughter and her cousin, drew the picture. So if you want to guess what next week's Bad Bracket episode is going to be about, that is your hit. Yes, Harry wants to have our draft one more time since he was not able to get on at that point. So we'll run through it real quick. This week's sports-related draft was the greatest leaps of all time in honor of Leap Month and Leap Year and all that. Robert Hagen's team. I'll let you just do your three real quick. Just list them. Don't spiel.
Michael Jordan's dunk from the free throw line. Jerome Simpson's front flip for Cincinnati back in 2011, and King Griffey Jr. robbing Albert Bell at the Kingdom.
For me, it was Gary Matthews with his home run robbery with a big contortionist act in center field. Gary Moorcraft with the mark of all time. It was the mark of the year in 2001. Aussie Rules Football. That was my leap for the second round. And then the dunk of death, Vince Carter dunking over the 7-footer in the 2000 Summer Olympics. Those were my three, and those were Robert's three.
I have a feeling he's going to go with you. A gut tells me he's going to say Randy.
That's because he would be right. As Corey Thieveridge said, best of luck to the Clarkston girls basketball team. Harry has to see the AFL play, so I have to pull it back up. Shout out and good luck to the Lewiston boys basketball team as they play tomorrow. I'm trying to now stall while I bring up the play one more time, so then YouTube can really get mad at me. There you go, Harry. Here is your crazy mark of the year. and the ridiculous catch that he was able to make against Eric's Bulldogs. Just an insane jumping catch. Wait for Harry to make his final pick, and then we will get out of here. Next week, we will do the NL Central. It's a good thing it's past 8 o'clock, so these don't count. We'll do the NL Central preview, and we will talk everything about local stuff, and then we'll fill out the other 2 weeks as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for the supersized now edition of the R&R Sports Report. That is Robert Hagan. My name is Randy Isbell. Until next week, we are out.